In January 2007, the most powerful phone on the planet watched a rival stroll out onto a stage in San Francisco, and the men who ran it laughed. No keyboard. A battery that tapped out by lunchtime. A screen you had to smear with a greasy thumb. A toy. That was the word they used, in the boardroom, out loud, for the iPhone. A toy. Well, that toy is in your pocket right now, and the company that laughed at it is behind glass in a museum, filed somewhere between the fax machine and the Walkman. This is the story of BlackBerry, the phone that ran the White House, hooked Wall Street, and taught an entire planet to talk with its thumbs, and then got beaten to death by the very toy it refused to take seriously. This is Flatline, where one dead company a week goes under the knife, and I tell you what actually stopped the heart. On the slab tonight, BlackBerry. And the cause of death is the last thing its engineers would ever have believed. Let me take you back to when this thing was a status symbol, not a punchline. The mid-2000s, when the little blinking red light was the most powerful drug in corporate life. If you were anybody who mattered back then, a banker, a lawyer, a senator, a Hollywood agent, you did not carry a phone. You carried a BlackBerry. It was a fat little slab with a proper keyboard, 40-odd tiny keys you learned to machine gun, with both thumbs without ever looking down. It did one thing, and it did it better than anything on earth. It put your email in your pocket, instantly, securely, the second it landed. That does not sound like a revolution now, because you are soaking in it. But in 2004, being reachable everywhere was a superpower, and BlackBerry was the only one selling it. It came with its own private messaging network, BBM, encrypted end-to-end years before anyone else bothered. It had a little red light that blinked when a message came in, and that blink rewired people's brains. They gave the addiction a name, Crackberry, and in 2006, the dictionary people made it word of the year. Presidents were hooked. When Barack Obama won the White House, the one fight he picked with his own security agencies was over keeping his BlackBerry. That is how deep this thing had its hooks in. At its peak, RIM, Research in Motion, the Canadian company out of Waterloo, Ontario that built it, owned roughly half of the entire American smartphone market and was worth about $80 billion. It had, in every sense that mattered, the keys to the kingdom. So how does the phone that owned the thumbs of the powerful end up as a trivia answer? The comfortable version is the one you already know. Apple happened, the touchscreen happened, and a stuffy Canadian dinosaur simply couldn't keep up. And that's not wrong, it's just the lazy last chapter, and it skips the far more interesting truth. Because BlackBerry did not lose, because it was stupid. It lost because it was right about the wrong thing, for far too long. Here is what its two bosses actually saw when they took that first iPhone apart. Mike Lazaridis, the engineer who invented the BlackBerry, and Jim Balsillie, the salesman who sold it to the world, looked at Apple's toy, and, on paper, they were dead right. The battery was pathetic. The typing was slow and full of mistakes, because you were poking at glass with no keys to feel. A full web browser, Lazaridis warned, would suck down so much data it could buckle the phone networks themselves. There was no proper security, nothing for a corporate email server to trust. By every single measure that had made BlackBerry the king, battery, keyboard, security, the sacred inbox, the iPhone was a worse BlackBerry. And that is the whole trap, right there. BlackBerry was grading a business tool. Apple wasn't building a business tool at all. Apple had built a tiny computer that happened to make calls, a pocket cinema and games console and camera and shop, with email bolted on as an afterthought. BlackBerry asked, "Is it a better phone for work?" and answered, correctly, no. Nobody at RIM stopped to ask the only question that mattered. What if people don't want a work phone anymore? That is the diagnosis, and everything after it is just the patient refusing to read its own chart, so let me walk you through it. The killer was not the touchscreen. The killer was the App Store. When Apple opened the phone up to outside developers, the handset stopped being a product and became a platform, a slab of glass that turned into whatever 500,000 apps wanted it to be. BlackBerry's answer, app world, was a ghost town nobody built for. And then came the quiet mutiny that finished the job, the one nobody at RIM had a defense against. People bought iPhones with their own money, for fun, and then carried them into the office, and simply refused to use the company BlackBerry. The engineers call it bring your own device. I call it the inmates buying nicer phones than the prison. BlackBerry's entire fortress, the lockdown, IT-approved corporate handset, was quietly overrun by employees who liked the toy better. The keyboard it had married was now the anchor it was chained to. So RIM panicked, and panic is always ugly. In 2008, it rushed out the BlackBerry Storm, a touchscreen phone built by a keyboard company that did not believe in touchscreens, a device so buggy and so laggy that it practically shipped broken. It was a keyboard company's angry impression of an iPhone, and it fooled no one. Meanwhile, Lazaridis and Balsillie kept steering by the old map, kept betting that the grown-ups would come back to physical keys once the novelty of the toy wore off. The grown-ups did not come back. Their kids grew up on the toy, walked into those same boardrooms, and never even considered a keyboard. By the time RIM finally admitted the game had changed and built a real modern phone, the BlackBerry 10 platform, in 2013, it was bringing a beautiful, thoughtful keyboard to a knife fight the world had stopped watching years ago. It was a stunning answer to a question absolutely nobody was asking anymore. So let's mark the time of death, which came not with a bang but with a long, humiliating fade. In 2013, RIM renamed itself BlackBerry, wrote down about $1 billion of touchscreen phones it could not give away, and cut around 4,500 jobs, nearly half its people. Its share of the smartphone market, which had been about 50%, drained towards zero, and simply kept going. By 2016, BlackBerry gave up and stopped making its own phones altogether, handing the name out to other manufacturers, like a family heirloom nobody wanted. And in January 2022, the company flipped the final switch and shut down the old software for good, meaning the classic BlackBerries, the real ones, the ones with the keys, went dark in millions of drawers all at once. The little red light stopped blinking. No new message. Left on read. Forever. Now for the finding, the single line I would write on the certificate. It is not killed by the iPhone, cross that out. What killed BlackBerry is that it fell in love with being right. It had built the best answer in the world to one question. How do I get my work email, securely, on a keyboard? And it defended that answer with its life, long after the world had quietly changed the question. It mistook its greatest strength, the locked-down business machine, for a moat, when it was actually a cage. Every instinct that had made RIM great, protect security, protect the keyboard, protect the enterprise, don't waste battery on frivolous toys, was a perfectly sensible instinct, and lined up in a row, they walked a market leader straight off a cliff. It didn't fail to see the future. It saw the future, measured it against its own beautiful product, and decided the future was doing it wrong. So here's the X-ray to keep. Beware the moat that is really a cage. The one skill your whole company is built around, the keyboard, the security, the thing you are genuinely, provably best in the world at, is the exact thing that will blind you when the customer quietly stops wanting it. We've done a few of these on this table now. Kodak clutched its film. Blockbuster clung to its late fees. Nokia married its keyboard. Toys R Us got bled dry by its own owners. And BlackBerry did the most human thing of all. It refused to believe that the serious, powerful, expensive thing it had mastered could ever be beaten by a toy. The most dangerous sentence in business is not, "we didn't see it coming." It is, "we saw it coming, and we decided it wasn't for us." Somewhere, there is a middle manager who kept his company BlackBerry for 2 years longer than everyone else, thumbs flying across those little keys, quietly certain the fad would pass. Right up until the day IT took the server offline and the red light went dark for good. He didn't know he was the last of a species. That's the thing about extinction. It doesn't feel like an ending. It just feels like your phone finally being out of date. So there's your autopsy. The phone that taught the world to type with its thumbs got the last word typed about it by everyone else. Keys down. Signal lost. And I'll see you on the next slab.